Well, big congratulations for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. winning his second Silver Slugger.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, down on YouTube. We're at the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasco, Carter First 2, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. It'll notify you whenever we go have videos, we have shorts. Even if you're listening anywhere else, make sure you go and hit the subscribe button on YouTube because a lot happens over there. We also have the Discord channel, Locked On Blue Jays Discord channel. We talk Blue Jays all the time. If you want to pop on in there, you can join it. Link is in the description as well. We're still doing Movember, so make sure you guys go. If you're able to donate anything, we appreciate it. We tell you guys to. It's for a great cause. Please go and do that. Link is also in the description. Lot to get into today with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. coming away with his second Silver Slugger. Then we were going to have this conversation anyway, and that's talking about moving Vlad to third. Is it an option? We'll get into all that. And of course, we'll go into Jake Bloss, our player profile, season in review, sort of. And so we'll do that sort of coming up in the third segment. Carter, let's get right into it. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. takes his second Silver Slugger. How do you feel about it? I mean, personally, it's just what I expected. It's well-deserved. The stats back it up. I don't know what else to say. I'm not really shocked by this.
Yeah, before we get into that, I just want to kind of reference what we talked about yesterday. We said this was going to be the Juan Soto episode, but with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. coming out as the Silver Slugger winner, we decided to just save the Juan Soto stuff for the next episode. So the Juan Soto episode will be coming out Thursday instead of today. This will be Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Jake Bloss. We just figured with the Silver Slugger, might as well throw in this third base argument as well. But into Vladimir Guerrero Jr., no-brainer, absolutely no-brainer for us on this podcast. When we went over it, we looked at the other options for this award. Josh Naylor, Carlos Santana just didn't really match up in any statistical category. I think Josh Naylor had him beat by 1 home run and 5 RBIs. Other than that, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was the standout. He looked unbelievable that entire season, and with a lineup that did not give him a lot of protection whatsoever, which is even more impressive in my opinion. Just going over some of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s stats. If you guys follow us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, we already posted a little bit of a graphic for us there. But kind of just getting right into it. 323 average, an on base of 396, 544 slugging, OPS of 940, 199 hits. Could not quite get to that 200 mark. That's a little bit unfortunate for him. But I mean, 199 is nothing to scoff at. 30 home runs, 96 strikeouts to 72 walks. Just an unbelievable hitter. One of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s best seasons. Had a 6.2 WAR. This one competed with his season from 2021. Didn't necessarily quite get there, but again, when you look at the 2021 roster, when you have Teoscar Hernandez, Bichette, George Springer not hitting like an absolute pumpkin the entire season, Lourdes Gurriel, a lot more protection in that lineup, a lot better of an offense. You look at this year, there was really nobody you had to worry about down the stretch other than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Had more of an opportunity to pitch around him. So this was a very impressive season for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and it's a great reward for him for, again, a completely down season for pretty much everyone else on the Toronto Blue Jays. Nice that he gets his second Silver Slugger of his career.
Yeah, he also led the team in games played with 159, came away with a 6.3 WAR, and was named an All-Star for the 4th time in his 6-year career. So he's shaping out and having an amazing career. It's just, can he keep it going? How will the Blue Jays add to surround him and help him out? Because again, when you're the only guy hitting in a lineup, it's a little bit easier to pitch around you, not give you as many great pitches to hit, because if they walk you, they walk you. There's not anybody else behind you doing damage. So just a great overall offensive season from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And Carter, I think that sort of leads us into talking about Vlad at third base, his defensive part of his game. This obviously has nothing to do with the Silver Slugger, but it's a big piece to Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s game, his defense. How does he compete against the rest of the league? We've seen it at 1. We've seen him at 3. I mean, I think we weren't overly thrilled with the performance he's put on at 1. He's made some great plays, but he's also had some duds in there, Carter, where it's plays you think anybody in their right mind would make. And then sort of same thing at 3. I know you have some statistics from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. when he has played third base. Let's talk about that before we sort of talk about the rest of the options. What do you got for us?
So Vladimir Guerrero Jr., his only full season at third base was in 2019. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was very young, obviously, in this season, so he had a lot more experience since then. But it didn't go well for the rookie in 2019. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. would have been 19 years old around this time. So again, it's a 19-year-old playing a hot corner at the MLB level. It's tough for you to assume that he's going to be a Matt Chapman and Alex Bregman at third base. But going into the stats, when you look at it from 2019, it was awful. Just simply to put it, it was awful. That's why he only had a 1-year leash at this. He had -3 defensive runs saved, -19 outs above average, and a -15 run value. That's in the first percentile in fielding run value and first percentile in range. If you didn't know, you want to be in the 99th to 100 percentile. First is really bad. The only number that's worse than first is 0, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So he was in some of the bottom ranks in all of third baseman. That was over 124.1 innings. He had 17 errors, which is tied for second in total errors with a fielding percentage of .936. So overwhelmingly, not a very good year for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The problem with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has never necessarily been his arm strength. It's not really topping out at third base, but it's around MLB average, or maybe even a little bit above MLB average. The problem with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is just getting the ball in his glove, the actual fielding aspect. Didn't have a lot of range. Again, back in 2019, you could say Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a lot more out of shape than he was right now. And again, I kind of referenced the experience just being a 19-year-old in the league compared to this next upcoming season being 25, turning 26. A lot more experience, has years and years and years now of doing the MLB routines, where he's fielding ground balls, getting all these reps in. So just having more experience under his belt could be another reason why he would be a better option at third base compared to the season.
Yeah, and that's what we have to talk about, right? It always comes back down to experience, and there's going to be years where players just aren't at their best. And you mentioned, the age, the what kind of shape he was in, that all plays a big part. Third base is a hard position to play. And yeah, we haven't seen anything amazing from Vlad, but he's only had a few games here and there in the time that he, hasn't had. It was outside of the 2019 season. And Carter, I mean, realistically, I think that I wouldn't hate giving Vlad more of a shot at third. We've talked about this time and time again. And, if that's a spot that can be filled by Vlad, opening up some more possibility for, like we talked about, a right fielder or a right or a left fielder or a second baseman, whatever it needs to do to give this lineup a little bit more flexibility, allowing some more big bats in the lineup. If that's sacrificing some defense, we've talked about it, and that's an avenue we both think is great for this Blue Jays team to go down, sort of sacrificing the defense to play some better offense. And I don't necessarily know that we would see the same Vladimir Guerrero Jr. making the errors. I think we've seen he's got a quick glove at the hot corner. He's made plays like that at one where he's able to react quickly. It's just more of, I think, the routine plays, the being smart, the when to turn the double play, when you got to give it to one. Do you have to make that extra step? Little things like that for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. defensively that can be cleaned up. And part of my problem with all of this, Carter, is the experience. Do we want to say going into the season, yeah, Vlad's going to play half his games at third base? I don't know. He doesn't have that experience there. That leads me to believe that he's going to be a very good, if you want to call it, halftime third baseman.
Well, and just a very small sample size from the last season. But let's kind of break down what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. did in 2024. So only played 12 games at that third base position, had 2 errors on 34 total chances. So not exactly what you want to see. A 941 fielding percentage in those chances. That's 0.05 ticks better than it was over his 2019 season. And then you have to look at the option of how you have Bichette as your shortstop, who isn't necessarily the best defensive infielder either. So on that left side of the infield, having Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bichette could lead to a lot of trouble for Toronto Blue Jays pitchers. And we have said, we don't want to completely, we want to abandon defense more so for offense. But do we want to go this aggressive with it? Do we want to put a guy that was one of the worst third basemen in all of baseball in 2019 at this hot corner? They don't call it a hot corner for no reason. The ball gets hit pretty hard at a guy like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And one of his biggest weaknesses playing third base was feeling ground balls to his right side, feeling ground balls to that third base side. where, again, if you're hitting the ball, you're probably going to be hitting it pretty hard up that third base line. But saying that again, are we going to need Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to be Matt Chapman? Are we going to need him to be Alex Bregman? No, you want him to be serviceable. I was looking up articles just about his defense, and Keegan Matheson actually made a really good point about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He made a good comparison. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at third base, that experience should be how we treat NFL kickers or like refs or umpires. If you don't hear a lot about him after the game, that's probably a really good thing for the Toronto Blue Jays. If there isn't like a terrible error, a huge mental lapse, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is just making the routine plays, I think that's something that a lot of people are going to be okay with. And when we talk about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at third base, you kind of reference this point as well. He's not going to be the everyday third baseman. That isn't in the cards. That's not what their plan would be. If you can make 25, 30 starts at third base and be serviceable, not even good, just serviceable, I think that can benefit the Toronto Blue Jays in a bunch of different ways. You look at the first base position, you'll have Spencer Horwitz there. If you want, you could go outside the organization and sign somebody there. And then that gives you more flexibility at second base. You have the flexibility at DH, just a ton of flexibility within the offensive lineup for the Toronto Blue Jays if Vladdy can be serviceable at third base.
Yeah, and that's always part of it, right? Is how much do you value defense at that third base side? And like you talked about, there are in-house options for third base when Vlad isn't playing there, right? We've seen Ernie Clement play very good defense, nominated for a Gold Glove this season. So at the end of the day, there are options, and not saying that Vlad's going to play there every day, but maybe you do give him, say it is a third of the games, a half of the games to play at third, and you sort of just soak the not as great defense. As long as he is fine and he doesn't make an error every game, I think you're more than happy with having his bat in the lineup, and maybe the addition of a couple guys we'll get into in the next segment of different options that, the Toronto Blue Jays have in-house. Why would they want to move Vlad? What's the thought process behind this? We'll get into all that. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Today's episode is sponsored by Select Quote. The World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing: teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. Select Quote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized and affordable life insurance. They can find the right policy for you to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. In sports, winning is everything. If you aren't winning, you're trying to set up yourself for the future and for your team to win in the future. With Select Quote, you can get the best of both worlds. You can save now while protecting your family's legacy and their financial future. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less. With Select Quote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor to a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/locked-on. Go to selectquote.com/locked-on today to get started. That's selectquote.com/locked-on.
So, Carter, we talked about Vlad and how he was at third base. Now let's get it maybe into why do the Toronto Blue Jays want to move Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to third base some of the time? Well, and the big answer is to get Spencer Horwitz's bat in the lineup. What this does is moving Vlad to 3 allows you to put Spencer Horwitz at 2 or at 1, have maybe like a Will Wagner, an in-house guy there at 2, and then still have your DH slot open. And that's barring any moves, but that would be the case. Getting a Davis Schneider bat or maybe a Joey Loperfido DH bat, something like that into the lineup. It gives you more flexibility, gives Spencer Horwitz some games not as the DH, because I don't think they're going to want to flirt with Spencer Horwitz as second baseman too often this season.
And that's the entire reason why you would move Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to third base. It would just strictly be for offense. It's tough to speculate right now because without the free agency moves, you got to assume they're going to make a couple. So this team's going to look a lot different. But you move Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to third base, you're going to have Spencer Horwitz playing first. I think they still will have an option of Spencer Horwitz playing second. I don't think he looked that bad. Again, serviceable is the only thing we were really looking for at second base. I think we got that with a guy like Spencer Horwitz. So this would just really give the Blue Jays an option to address a first base or DH position. So it gives them flexibility. They can get a DH can obviously play it can be a left fielder, a center fielder, a second baseman, a catcher, whatever you need it to be. That's why it's a DH. You just need them for hitting. Their defensive position does not really matter. Moving Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to third base. Again, I think you're right. Spencer Horwitz right now within the organization would be your number one first baseman. Then at second base, there's a bunch of different options you can have here. Again, you brought up Dave Schneider, you brought up Will Wagner, Orelvis Martinez might be an option here. Ernie Clement, some games could play at second base if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to play at third. So this really maximizes your potential at offense. It'll allow them to score a lot more runs than last year. At least that's the idea behind this. So the main topic of this podcast is going to just be flexibility. We've used that word a bunch of times already. Just gives the Toronto Blue Jays numerous options compared to kind of leaving him at first base and then only having really third base and second base to kind of rotate your players into.
Yeah, and hopefully this isn't the final plan. Like, hopefully there are free agent signings and guys will have more stability in their positions. But at the end of the day, you're never going to play 162 games. Nobody is. So this allows them to switch out some guys here and there when guys need an off day, a break, a rest, whatever it may be. I think just having the option for Vlad there is a big piece of this. I think even with the moves, even say there's a second baseman and a left fielder that are that they have picked up in free agency, that still leaves a third base hole or Ernie Clement. So I think having Vlad taking some games there, giving Ernie Clement a day off or putting Ernie Clement at somewhere else, I think this all just comes down to being able to, what we talked about a lot last year, was ride the hot hand. For some of these bench guys or fringe guys, it's going to be whoever's hot. And that's what you saw with Ernie Clement last season, was Ernie Clement got hot and they wanted to get him in the lineup any way possible. So this allows them to do a lot more of that. I think you don't want to make Vlad a first base only guy. I think what putting him at third does is you're utilizing him. Hopefully he figures out how to play good third base and he becomes sort of a dual threat that can play 1 and 3 and of course DH as well. So at the end of the day, I mean, we're going to have to wait and see what happens this free agency to really determine why and when and how many games Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will get at third base. But I think at the end of the day, you're right. It is all about flexibility here and allowing the team to go and like we said, ride the hot hand.
Well, and if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can be serviceable at third base, this is beneficial to him for his career as well. When you look at Vladdy, he said in June of this year when he made his first start that he loves playing third base. He signed as a third baseman, so that is his favorite position. And when you look at Vladdy, just having that versatility going into a contract year, again, if he is serviceable at first base, that's just more money that you're going to have to pay this guy. And why we've advocated for such a long time that they should have extended this guy already. But here we are going into this season, and we're going to have to see if he does have this flexibility and is able to play at third base. But if he is serviceable, you have a third baseman, you have a guy that play first, you have just a power hitter that can play at multiple corner positions in the infield. And that helps out teams a great bit. You look at third baseman compared to first baseman power hitters, or just hitters in general in the league. There's going to be a lot more options at first base rather than third base. So I'm going to get into my final thoughts here, and then I'm going to kind of throw it back over to you with your final thoughts. My issue with this whole thing is that I don't believe Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can be a serviceable third baseman. From what we've seen in 2019, from what we've seen, honestly, at first base, from what we've seen in his short amount of opportunities in 2024 at third base, I don't even know if this guy's that good a defender at all, even at first base. I know he won a Gold Glove in 2022, but some say that was a little bit of a Mickey Mouse Gold Glove. He did have better seasons in 21 and 22. But let's just go over his fielding run value and just some of the other defensive stats throughout Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s career. So we go back to 2020, his fielding run value was at 25 with -2 outs above average, -2 defensive runs saved. Then he had outs above average in the 16th percentile at -2. Going to 2021, again, got a little bit better, but it's not great. Had 29th percentile in fielding run value. You go to his range, it's at 16th. He has -3 outs above average there. Again, that's under league average, obviously. Going to 2022, when he won that Gold Glove, had a -3 fielding run value. Again, when you go to his range, it was a -4 outs above average. And then 2023 and 2024 happened, and this is where Vladimir Guerrero Jr. kind of returned, in my opinion, to the 2019 form of this guy playing defense. Fielding run value in the 5th percentile at -10, not what you want there. Outs above average, -13 with one in the 1st percentile. Not good at all going to 2024, obviously this past season. Fielding run value of in the 10th percentile, and then again, outs above average at -9 in the 3rd percentile. So overwhelmingly, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has not been that good of a defender in his entire career. He does make some flashy plays, but when you look at the routine plays, when you look at some of those games and some of those errors that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. did make, he does make a lot of mental lapses out there. And when you look at third base, it's a lot harder of a fielding position than first base is. First base, the majority of your putouts are just catching a ball. Yes, he's gotten a lot better at picking the baseball, which is great for first base, but how much picking of the baseball are you going to do at third base? Relatively none. Maybe the odd one. Again, Jazz Chisholm could have used a little bit of help with a pick at third base in the World Series, but you're not really getting a lot of those options. So for me, I just don't see this as being a long-term option. I don't believe Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can make starts at third base and be productive. I think he's going to be an absolute liability at third base. Would I love to see him play good third base or even just serviceable third base? For sure. But I think it's going to hurt the Toronto Blue Jays in the long run if they try to put this guy at third base time and time again.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't think Vlad is a good fielder. I think the stats show it. The eye test shows it. You watch baseball games, and you can tell he does not look comfortable there. He barely looks comfortable at first base. I just don't think that this is a great option. I think your ideal goal is for Vladdy to be just a great hitter. I think putting some stress on him moving to third base, the woes that come with a bad defensive play, I don't think that's great putting it in Vlad's head. And I think there's more opportunity to make bad plays when you're at third base. I understand the thought process. I really do. I understand wanting the lineup flexibility. Vlad wants to play three, so you want to give him the opportunity. But at the end of the day, if it's going to hurt your baseball team and hurt Vlad possibly in the season with, a bad play, mentally get down, mentally it takes you out of the box, I just, at the end of the day, don't think that this is the right move. I think you have enough flexibility with Spencer Horwitz to move him to second or DH when needed. If Vlad needs an off day, he moves to one. I don't think that there's an absolute need for this. Again, like I said, I understand the thought process, and if Vlad goes on and has a great year defensively, then fantastic. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and lie to anybody and say I think Vlad's going to have an amazing season at third base. I just think we've seen what we've seen. We know what kind of defensive player Vlad is. And you brought up the Gold Glove, Carter. It still blows my mind to this day that he won one. I think that's an absolutely criminal give. I love Vlad as much as I do. I think the Silver Slugger more than well deserves it. But I think if you're looking at Vlad defensively and you see him with a Gold Glove, I think that's where I start to question on who's voting on these awards a little bit.
Well, and that's also where the name value comes in. A lot of these awards are just who are the superstars, who are the well-known players in the league. But going back to just this third base debate, one thing we could hope for, and again, maybe a little bit of a spin zone here, is, like I said, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s favorite position is third base. Maybe there's a little bit of a fire in him. Maybe he wants to return to that third base position and prove to people that he can be a serviceable third baseman. So maybe if there's a fire under his butt, he gets some work in, obviously gets some ground balls, gets his routines in. Maybe he shows the world that he can be a serviceable third baseman and drives up that value even more for his contract.
Yeah, maybe. We'll talk about more of this as the free agency continues, as we start to hear more on what's going to happen. But we do obviously have our player profile. We got to get into Jake Bloss, a guy that we have not seen a ton, that we've seen pitch for the Houston Astros. We'll get into his season in review, plus a look ahead to 2025 with Jake Bloss right after this quick break. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. I have been killing the NFL bets lately. I had a little bit of a down week this week, but I think I'll pick it right back up. I think I'm like 3 for 4 in good weeks right now, so hopefully I can keep that going. So when you're in the middle of when you have a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I do this all the time. I see maybe a guy who I think is going to go off like halfway through the first quarter, and I'm like, all right, well, now I can put a bet on the guy. That's what FanDuel gives you the opportunity to do. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, Carter, we've gone through our player profiles, and, we sort of took a little bit of a break with the amount of Blue Jays news coming out. We haven't done one of these in a while, but it's here. And Jake Bloss is number 25, I believe, Carter?
25.
25, yeah. So 25 on our Blue Jays rankings. We haven't done one of these in a while, but it's good to get back to it because, we want to sort of talk about these guys. How do we feel about them throughout this season? And sort of how do we feel about them going through into next season? Obviously, he did not play with the Toronto Blue Jays. He was drafted by the Houston Astros in the third round of the 2023 MLB amateur draft from Georgetown University. And yeah, Carter, I mean, if I look back at Jake Bloss' MLB career from last season, well, it was 3 games. It was 3 games, 11 2/3 innings pitched. He gave up 16 hits, 9 earned runs, 5 home runs, 3 walks. He had 11 strikeouts. And I don't know. I mean, Carter, he had a 6.94 ERA. I don't really take much away from his big league debut with the Houston Astros. He's ranked number 1 in the Blue Jays prospect rankings. Obviously, everyone sees a bigger piece to this guy than necessarily his short tenure with the Houston Astros lets anybody believe. I only expect good things from this guy moving forward. But to talk about his season in review, I mean, I can't really say a whole lot. I'm not out there watching AAA games. I'm watching clips. I like what he throws. I can understand. I can see the vision moving forward with Jake Bloss. It's going to, sort of come down to when will we see him, right?
Yeah, I think you had an old list of the Blue Jays prospect rankings. He's number 3 on the new list. Trey Savage and Orelvis Martinez are both ahead of him. But with Jake Bloss, you can't take anything away from 11.1, 11.2 innings, whatever it was. 3 starts. I mean, it's hard to get your feet wet in the MLB and then go out there and just be an unbelievable starting pitcher unless you are Paul Skeens all of a sudden, throwing 100. Jake Bloss does have a lot of upside, but he's not necessarily going to be a guy that's throwing 100 out there. 6'3", 223 pounds, only 23 years old. The scouting report on Bloss is he kind of has a weird delivery, has a low release point, which makes it difficult for hitters to get on that fastball, and just has a really good MLB caliber pitch mix. He has a changeup, 3 breaking pitches, a sharp curveball, an upper 80s follow-away slider. He also has the sweeper in there. I love the sweeper as a pitch, just watching it. I don't know, just something, no really reason behind it, just it looks cool on TV. I think that's probably the one thing for me. When you look at the trade for Jake Bloss, and initially, Jake Bloss. I said Jake Bloss. Initially, it was just going to be Jake Bloss. Those are the reports that we were getting. He was that good. Maybe they throw in just like a random prospect outside of the top 30. But they end up getting Jake Bloss, Will Wagner, and Joey Loperfido for one of the best trades I think I've seen the Toronto Blue Jays make. We'll throw a little bit of credit to Ross Atkins there. But this is a guy that the Toronto Blue Jays shouldn't have to rely on for 2025. They should be able to just kind of throw him in AAA, where he did have a lot of success going into just some brief AAA stats. MLB, minor league stats, not MLB stats. 3.18 ERA over 93.1 innings pitched, 88 strikeouts, a whip of 1.07. This guy progressed over 4 leagues this last season. So he was in single A, he was in double A, he was in AAA, and then obviously made some MLB appearances as well. That just shows how good he is right there, just how quickly he progressed. Not really looking for this guy to go out there and be an ace for the Toronto Blue Jays. If that happens, absolutely perfect. But you still have Kevin Gausman, you still have Chris Bassitt, you still have Jose Berrios. Alek Manoah is going to come back at some point next season. Bowden Francis, who looked like an ace at parts throughout the season. There has been, again, links to the Toronto Blue Jays to some starting pitching in free agency. And then you also have Yariel Rodriguez, if you have to throw him as your 5th guy. I don't think a lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans are going to be too upset at that. So with me and Jake Bloss, where I'm at with this guy is maybe we see him at some point throughout the year. Maybe he comes up in July, maybe it's August, maybe it's even September down the stretch. I don't think he starts necessarily on the MLB team, and that's why we have him pretty low on our prospect rankings, or our MLB team rankings, for the Blue Jays, because we don't really expect him to have a major impact. And that's a good thing at the pitcher position when you have this depth. If there is an injury, maybe we see Jake Bloss a little bit earlier. There's a bunch of things that can go wrong for pitching. Maybe there's some performances that don't necessarily go as expected. So Jake Bloss as the 6th starting pitcher right now, maybe even 7th when you have Alek Manoah back, is a really good option for the Toronto Blue Jays to have right now.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think if Jake Bloss does make his appearance earlier, I think that shows that the Toronto Blue Jays are in about the same position they were last year, where you're just bringing guys up to give them playing time. I think at the end of the day, if we do not see Jake Bloss this year, I think that means the Toronto Blue Jays are having a good season and an injury-free season to the extent of their pitchers. And I think that's a huge thing. We want this team to do well. We want this team to make the playoffs. if that's the case, I don't think Jake Bloss has a spot on this roster whatsoever. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, again, things can change. Maybe he has an unbelievable year and it's undeniable that he needs to be with the big league club. But right now, looking at it, I think if Jake Bloss is on this team, the Toronto Blue Jays have way bigger problems at hand.
See, all I'm looking for Jake Bloss really is just to progress in 2025. We want this guy to make his maybe not MLB debut, but be a regular on the MLB team in 2026. At that point, you have Jose Berrios, you'll still have Kevin Gausman, and you'll need a spot obviously open for Chris Bassitt unless they re-sign him. We'll get way more into that obviously when that happens. It's still pretty early to think about that kind of stuff. But I'm more so worried about Jake Bloss for the future. This guy's only 23 years old. I'm not expecting him to jump in the major leagues and be this ace. If it happens, unbelievable. I'm not definitely not going to be sad about Jake Bloss making his or Toronto Blue Jays MLB debut, I should say. But the Astros senior director had nothing but good things to say about this guy as well. He says, I don't think there was ever a question about the arm talents, the art of competing. He has matured tremendously in that aspect and has done it in a really, really short amount of time. So a lot of good things about Jake Bloss, a lot of things that can be developed as well. He has some command issues at times, like honestly, all younger players do. That's a very common occurrence. If you can start getting that pinpoint accuracy, start getting those reps in, kind of like all of these just younger players as well. The more experience you get, the easier it's going to be to make that transition to the MLB league, even if it's just the little things, just, throwing every single day, working with the weight of balls, doing whatever it takes to kind of get a little bit of that velo up. We've seen crazier things with some of the other pitchers in this organization. When you have guys like Pete Walker at the helm, when you have obviously very good pitching coaches in AAA as well, Jake Bloss is set up for success for the Toronto Blue Jays with their current state of their starting pitching.
Yeah, and we've seen the minor league system work out so well for some of these starting pitchers that have come up through there. Same with Pete Walker. He's utilized guys. He's found ways to find what works. So, yeah, I got all the faith in the world that I think Jake Bloss will be a good piece for this team. But, yeah, I don't think or hope that it will be in 2025. Maybe a spot start here or there. But I think overall, Carter, we have to aim for Jake Bloss in 2026. I think that is in everybody's head. Same with ours. I think, like I went back to earlier, if you do see him in an extended role this year, or this coming year, I think that's a problem for this Toronto Blue Jays team. But in saying that, I hope nothing but the best, and he has a great season in AAA and can really start to work on some of the little things that he'll have to bring over to the MLB team.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if he comes up in 2025. I think it's a bad thing if he comes up in like April or May or June. I think at that point you had a major injury or something went terribly wrong. This guy pitches really good in AAA like he has the last couple of seasons. Again, had a couple stinkers near the end of the season, which inflated some stats in AAA. But if he has a very good 3-month, 4-month stretch and you want to pull him up and you want to maybe go to a 6-man rotation, maybe you make a trade. There's a bunch of different options on the table. If this guy pitches his way onto the MLB team, I don't think that's necessarily a problem, but how realistic is that is where I'll kind of take a step back. I don't know. We'll see how it works out. He's a young guy, again, raw player. So these prospects, like we said, are lottery tickets. I think Jake Bloss, maybe you can't say he's a lottery ticket because based off some of the stuff we've seen, how he's been talked about in the past. But if Jake Bloss can make an impact on the Toronto Blue Jays, even whether it's even out of the bullpen in a long relief role, again, hopefully the Toronto Blue Jays are in a playoff scenario. And if Jake Bloss can make that playoff team, I think that means things went pretty well for Jake Bloss. There's just a lot of mysteries with this guy. That's kind of where we're at because we haven't really seen a lot of them. We usually do player grades on what they did this last season and the upcoming season. For Jake Bloss, I guess it's a C. That's usually where I kind of keep that average because I just don't really know a lot about this guy. I haven't seen him a lot, especially obviously at the MLB level. So it's hard to make a prediction for him right now. If he can just progress and have better numbers than he did last year, I'm going to be happy with Jake Bloss.
Yeah, you can't really give a guy that you haven't seen a ton. Like, yeah, we've seen clips and we've seen, a little bit of video from him down in AAA. But other than that, really, I mean, his spot starts in the MLB, that was about it. We really have not seen a ton. So it's hard to say, oh, he looks like the next coming of Christ. I don't think that's the right thing to say either. I think you have to be somewhat realistic, but also optimistic. I think because you want these guys to develop well. And I think that's what the Toronto Blue Jays hope for. But in saying that, yeah, it's a wait and see type of thing for Jake Bloss and a lot of these prospects. In saying that, Carter, we have a ton more to talk about tomorrow. We got a huge Juan Soto episode coming, a lot to break down. There's been so many quotes and everything. And, it gets to a point where we're not sure how much we need to talk about it because you sort of break things down and then more news comes out and rumors come out and we might as well call next episode the rumor mill, because that's about where it's going to be, because it's all he said, she said, this is what's happening. We'll give you guys the stuff we know for sure that is happening and what's going on. So make sure you guys do tune in for that. Carter, and before we sort of kick out of here for the day, you got anything else?
No, that's all I got today. I just thank you guys for watching. Likes, comments, everything recently has been appreciated. We are trying to get back on the shorts again. There was a long weekend recently, so we did take a little bit of a break there just because of some extracurricular activities. But after this podcast, or I guess before this podcast, probably last night, there will be a short out. So just be sure to be on the lookout for those shorts. Again, our goal is to be around every other day. Might be more some weeks, might be less some weeks. Kind of depends on the information coming out. But again, I say this every single episode. Ross Atkins, get us in transaction. There's, again, lots to talk about, but nothing really major because we're just kind of operating on quotes, rumors. Again, Juan Soto, you could make an episode every single day with all the rumors that come out on that guy. So we're going to just, going to recap the reports, see where we're at, see where some of these analysts are at. And I'm excited to talk about the possibility, even if it is just the possibility, of Juan Soto coming to Toronto.